Good morning, everybody. It is office hours for Monday, November 12th. Welcome to Bonnie and Other Bonnie and Janine. And we are chatting about I'm not sure what this morning. So I have a couple of ideas, because I always have a couple of ideas, but is there any specific questions and or topics and or just general anything that people particularly want to talk about this morning? I'm open to going with the flow.
Well, I'm still trying to get my website email going, but I don't know if you want to take time here today to do that. It's been,
Yeah.
I'm already convinced that GoDaddy is a pain in the you-know-what.
It kind of is.
I guess I've been lucky.
Well, I think also, Bonnie, you probably know how to negotiate it better than I do. But if
I've never talked to them, so.
You're just better technically, I guess. But if it wasn't going to make it even take longer, I would switch right away. But I'm afraid that that's just going to create more time suck than it's worth in the end. But that's
let's take a look at that at the end, because then I can help you like off office hours.
Okay,
we'll just finish it right after we're done with this hour. Perfect. And we can weigh the options together and see what makes the most sense. It's not actually all that onerous to move it. It's actually quite quick. Like it might be a 24-hour delay, but it's not like weeks or anything. So we can see how you feel about that. And your slow assistant, who's almost finished the other pieces but not quite, can also help out with the rest of the bits, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay.
So very nearly back on track. So close.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I can taste it. Yeah.
Do you recommend a particular web hosting site?
Both Bluehost or HostGator is where all of my actual hosting is now. I used to actually use GoDaddy, and I have clients on everything you can imagine. So I'm familiar with what feels like all of them some days, but mostly I've found the interface with HostGator to make the most sense and be the cleanest and not so hard to navigate. And usually like GoDaddy's help team has always been very good when I've needed to call them. So, that's all good, but I've had better luck with the HostGator ones, I have to say. Now, if you don't need them, like Bonnie, who has a solid computer background, that's a different thing. But Bluehost also, I've not really had problems with lately. They used to be very expensive, but they also started immediately including the SSL certificates when other people weren't. So that became a good thing. Yeah, it's just really, it's matching like your sort of interface of what you're comfortable with and what your preferences are and like how many sites you think you need. Because my HostGator account is unlimited domains, and I pay, I think it's $13 Canadian a month, and I have like 50 websites hosted on there and all kinds of craziness. So, there are ways that can be beneficial. It just depends on what you're looking for and what they provide. So yeah, it's just a matching game, really.
Okay. Have you ever done Big Papa or Host Papa?
I have a couple clients who've used them. Yeah. And again, like if you're just installing WordPress, that hasn't really been a thing. They had a while back where they got like hacked. That client got hacked a lot of times, and I don't know if it was down to they were making their password way too easy, or if it was because it was actually the cPanel dashboard that had trouble, and I was never really sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have as much experience with that one. I think they're fine. Like it, as always with any hosting situation, if your tech support you're getting from them is good, and if your website is not going down, like if it's got mostly uptime, and if you are comfortable with it and you're not being overcharged, like that's all that matters. Is if you're happy with it, don't muck with it. It's only if you're frustrated, or if it's not like, if they're not going to let you have 2 email addresses without charging you a whole bunch extra, then you might look at if there's another host that's comparable and it's not going to be an additional monthly charge for your SSL certificate and or for your email, then that's a better choice maybe long term. It's just to be somewhere that can offer you everything you want comfortably. The other thing I tell people to ask about is your backups, because um, you know, that was one of the things that I was looking at when I made a switch as well, was at that time, you know, GoDaddy did all the backups automatically, but when I actually had to go and retrieve and rebuild something, it was quite a long wait to get any files, and I hadn't been doing manual backups because I thought it was taken care of. And so then I was looking at options of like, what's it going to cost me to use your backup service versus the one that HostGator had. And at that time, HostGator's backup service was going to cost me like $20 a year, and I would have daily backups at my fingertips for me. And so that just felt really valuable to me, to be able to access that. But they're always changing. Like every single month, the plans available and the services that are included with them is different. So, you know, I have like this snapshot of when I was trying to make all these decisions, and then it made sense for me. So it really is going back and just saying to your hosting provider, like, here's my situation. I need to either have these things happen or I need to move to a new hosting company. And often that's very motivating for them. And they have actually options at their disposal to make you happy with what you have. And so, but you have to ask the questions. They won't volunteer it. So, you know, a phone call to say, here's where my frustrations lie. I need this fixed, or I'm changing hosts today. They will often just keep you on the phone until it's fixed and you're happy. So, you know, that's a strategy also. Just say, here's what I'm comparing to. You need to do better, or I'm going to have to make a smart business decision, right?
Right.
It doesn't need to be threatening, and it doesn't need to be unpleasant, but I've found asking the right questions in a pleasant tone of voice gets the same response often as, you know, the yelly mad person. And you don't
Kinda like
traumatize your
dealing with
tech support
shock.
person.
Like dealing
Which
with
also
shock
has
and
benefits. Yeah. But
Okay.
yes, same with TELUS. Like, you should call them like once a year and threaten to change your phone to a different company, and they will give you shockingly good rates on your internet. Just
They
saying.
do. They do.
They have a
Same.
client retention department, which you don't get to unless you know they exist and you ask for them.
Actually, they all seem to have that, which is kind of nice to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay. So I don't know what other topics have other people had to ask questions about.
nothing yet.
Nothing.
It's a blank slate.
So, okay, here's my second question.
Perfect.
So,
Do it. Go all in on the question.
I don't have a website, and so I need to build one. And I've heard lots of that WordPress is actually quite challenging to deal with because it's got so many changes, and like we looked into it at work, and it was there's just so many technical pieces that you have to look after in order to make it work. So is there something else that works better or easier, or is that just
Personally, I think like for an author website, WordPress is not crazy hard. It is a little bit of a technical interface, but if you're looking for just straight up, you know, pretty kind of out of the box, and you don't want to get too fancy or involved or whatever, Squarespace is it's more expensive for sure.
okay?
Because you're going to pay a higher monthly fee than you would just with hosting and a free WordPress installation. So that's where the trade-off is. Like, it is, they have some beautiful templates now. Again, it's another one that, like, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, oh, no, don't even think about that. But they've come a long way with Squarespace, and they have some really nice options, and a lot of people find it much easier to like plug and play.
Mm-hmm.
What you do have to check is you just have to be very aware of where you want to go down the line, in terms of like how you want your mailing list signups to function. And you need to make sure that your mailing list provider that you want to use is integratable with Squarespace. I haven't checked lately. Let's just see how MailerLite and Squarespace do. I think they have it all set up now. So
MailerLite works with WordPress.
Yeah, there's an integration. MailerLite is not WordPress. MailerLite is just the mailing list
I know
company that I often recommend. Yeah, so they will integrate with WordPress or Squarespace as well. They have plugins for both and options for both. So that's not a deal breaker. I'm not a fan of Wix or Weebly. I have to be honest. I have moved so many clients away from them over the years. So part of what you're looking for is not just ease of use, but how well that tool plays with the rest of the internet, in terms of the plugins you can use, the way that it integrates with the other tools you might want, and also how it does in SEO. So there's a lot of stuff, like WordPress has a lot of power on the internet because 30+% of the internet is powered by WordPress. So in terms of your rankings and the way that things work, I found discoverability for the people who were using Wix and Weebly. They had a heck of a time. Like, nobody was finding their website.
Okay.
It's kind of like when you get a social media account on Twitter, you have the power of Twitter's findability built into the tool that you're using. And so that's part of the power of WordPress is that. Now, that being said, that works in terms of tools. It's not like a default findability that's in there. It's just that the stuff that works with it works really well. So personally, I prefer WordPress, but Squarespace, a lot of people prefer that these days because it is easier on a technical side. So it just depends your expectations of what you want to do with your website and what you might want to do later. But if you're looking at like a basic author site where you're just going to set up like your 5 pages or whatever, your about and your whatever, maybe you'll have a blog, maybe you'll have a books page. If you're thinking about like selling stuff from your site, or, I'm not sure if there's password protected pages and things like that on Squarespace at the moment. That would be a thing to check on, because if you're going to manage an ARC team and you want to have a space where they can go to download stuff from BookFunnel, but you want it password protected, like there's lots of things you might want to do that require functionality. So I'm not saying Squarespace doesn't have it. It's quite possible that they do now, but just make a list for yourself of anything you can imagine yourself wanting to do at this moment. And then start looking for those functionalities. It'll change over time, but it's good to build in a system that can grow with you. You don't want to have to redo it if you don't need to.
Okay. And
there are, like, part of what we do in office hours is regularly sharing the make it easier tech tips, right? So there's the updates people are talking about is like, once a month you need to log in and click update. Like, it's not actually that challenging for the most part, Occasionally it takes a day or two for a plugin to catch up with the updates, but it's very quick and is not generally a thing as long as you are sort of following the best practices. And you've got help. A lot of people are just kind of on their own in their house, staring at their computer, trying to figure it out by themselves. And that's a little bit different than, being able to watch tutorials and ask questions and whatever else.
Okay. So I have to design my website first, and I guess I'll have to have 2 of them. Okay. Figure this all out.
Is that because you're doing 2 brands?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen people do 2 authors from the same website. And I find it confuses me.
Yeah, it's not great for your branding. It's not great for your your sales channel stuff when that starts trickling out. Like to Amazon, it'll muck your also bots like crazy.
Your what
and you
box?
don't even know because you can't see them anymore.
Your what box?
Oh, your also bots. So
your also bot.
Yeah, so on Amazon where it lists like people who bought this book also bought, and then it lists this whole row of other books. Those are the also bots. And Amazon is not showing those right now. They're doing like some beta testing of removing them from people's profiles. So they're still happening in the background, but they're not visible to you on the front end. So as an author, it just makes it a little bit harder. You got to do a couple other steps to figure out what books your book is being associated with.
Right.
So yeah. The also.
So how do you do? We'll have to ask you. I'll have to ask you that later because first I have to set up my webpage. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple tools that are great for that. that
Mhm.
help you do that. There's one that's free that's really neat called yassive.com.
Called what?
Yassive.com. It keeps auto-correcting to Yasmin. It's so funny. Don't go to there.
.com.
Yassive.com. There you go. The bottom one.
Oh, Viv with a V.
Yeah.
Yassive.com.
Yeah.
And that does, sorry, what was that for?
And well, here, since we don't have anything else specific right at this current time, let's just play in here one
It's your
second.
most popular show and tell.
It is, yeah, it's up there right now. That and the Wayback Machine. They're both
Yeah.
they're both up there. Okay. And we can do, whose book should we do?
Why don't we do CJ Hunt's book?
Okay. Which one? Let's check the box set. It's only been up there for a couple of days. I'm not a robot. I'm really not.
So where do you look in books?
Oh, I'm gonna look in Kindle Store.
Oh, in Kindle Store. Okay.
We'll see what it finds. So it's looking to see connections of things.
Oh my. Look
Yeah.
at that.
So it maps stuff for you.
Uh-huh.
And where is the box set? Normally the one you're looking at appears in the middle. Oh, maybe I didn't select it from up here. Where is it? That's a lot of box sets. Maybe it's down there. No. Fascinating.
This search reveals something new.
Yeah,
Usually it's right there in the center.
it is, generally speaking. Now, I only published this box set like a week ago, but it did pop up. Let's just try that once more and see if we can't get it at the top, because this is the other question. Is it was unclear what effect the also bot removal would have on this tool's ability to work. So that's going to be so there's all these different ways to look at this. You can sort these things by sales rank. You can sort them by publication date. Lots of stuff out the last couple of days. It's that season, right? But the purpose of this tool partly is to look at your stuff. So I can't find, oh, and you know what? That might make sense, because this is like looking at connections, and almost everybody who has downloaded the box set since I published it is one-clicking that after reading the free Silver Bells. So they wouldn't have bought any of these other books, so it won't be connected. So that may be why that it picked my other books. But what you can see is you can test your read-throughs is part of it. You can see like how many people are reading multiples of your books. And these are all pretty interconnected, right? And you can also see like what are the arrows coming in and out of it. So if people read Wedding Bells, then they may have gone on apparently to read this. Apparently. This is a common sort of cluster. So you can see when you get a strong series and people read inside that cluster, it's super consistent with those patterns and those interconnections, which is good. It means your brand is holding strong. Like with these ones, this is a single author again who's got like a cluster of books. So that's good. If your branding is on target, then you're going to see that a lot of these connections are other authors like you, right? That are writing the same kinds of things. So here's another set of connections, which is like hometown Christmas box sets of romance stories, right? which is good. That's what you want. And you can go looking for authors who you could do newsletter swaps with or whatever, right? So you can see clearly I need more books in my box set because these guys have a lot of them. So that's a thing. But it does help in looking at, you know, how the pieces fit together or don't, and who's buying and then coming to yours from there, and vice versa. For some of these, it'll be that this author has ads that they've purchased. We lost the Janine. Has ads that they purchased on your books. And that's partly how some of these connections get made too. I'm curious where people go after Reindeer Games. Wait now. Whoop. All right. Interesting. Well, a lot of these are authors I've never really heard of. What? River's End Ranch? Huh. There you go.
They go there because it says River's End.
Yeah, they do. True story.
Huh,
that's hilarious. Okay, well, I'll have to.
Covers look the same because of the grass.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I'll have to check that out. Oh, and this is a series that's like packaged because it's all different authors.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is like a bundle. Let's just see.
It probably all takes place in River's End. So
yeah.
They probably go, hey, I like River's End. That's CJ.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's see the publisher. There isn't a publisher listed, so I'm guessing this is like a group of friends who are writers who got together and made themselves a world, and then they all wrote stories into it.
Interesting.
It is interesting. See, this is how you discover things like this. Okay, fascinating. All right. Well, that was our YaSave exploration for this morning. Always discover interesting things in there. And
I had kind of I don't know, it's a very beginner question.
Yeah.
Because I've been looking at science fiction and fantasy in the indie world, and it seems that my books actually would really fit well in there. I kind of felt like in the commercial world, there's not really very much like mine. But then I discovered the indie world, and there's tons like mine.
Yeah.
So, my kind of beginner question is, like, I want to research into it, but I don't think that I can produce 3-4 books a year. I might be able to produce one. Is that even that viable of a premise to start with, one book a year? Or is it better to have 3 books already and then look into indie publishing? So kind of a very beginner, how do I research this? How do I figure out what would be the best?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually, I think it's the most recent podcast / episode of the Self-Publishing 101, their self-publishing formula blog with Mark Dawson and James Blatch. They just interviewed, I think her name was Octavia, I want to say Butler, but I don't know if that's really her last name. Check it out. But she's a historical romance author, and she only releases one book every year to 18 months. But she does, like, she has longer books, and they're at a slightly higher price point because they're longer, and the genre will support that. And she has just built that over time, rolling out that like one book a year or whatever. So personally, I think it's easier if you have more than one book written, but at the same time, you can get really valuable feedback that will influence the next book. So what you might think about doing is trying to draft at least the first 2, if not the first 3. Like, get a rough draft out and then release the first one. And then, you can have a gap between them that's, fairly substantial if you want. Like, Cora Seaton at the workshop we went to was talking about her strategy around releasing a series to sort of maximize potential for BookBub and getting widest exposure and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So the strategy involved publish the first book, published the second book, it was about 4 months after, and then published the third book about 4 months after that. And then when the third one comes out, you make the first book free.
Yeah. I've
Either
seen
permanently
those
or
sort of things. I just
temporarily
wasn't
to get a
sure.
book club.
Just wasn't sure I could actually implement that. But yeah.
Yeah,
that
well,
seems
and
to be the sweet spot, huh?
that's the thing is, if you have too long between your initial releases, you lose the momentum that would be gained from that. Now, with a 4-month gap, that's still long enough to do some final adjustments if you get some feedback from readers or some reviews that highlight something that, you know, isn't going to work for people or is going to hold your book back, then that lets you still have time to fix that and make adjustments before you're releasing those. So you're not committed like if you put out all 3 at once. Also, if you're looking at like getting your covers made and things like that, if you can get all 3 made at the same time, you get way better consistency, often way better pricing as well. Because if you can tell the designer you need all 3 in the set, then often they'll build themselves kind of a template, and you'll end up approving an overall look and then get, you know, all 3 at the same time, which also lets you start promoting them on your website, right? With a tentative release date on them. Like you can build the hype, you can know exactly how much time you need to fill between releases on your newsletter lists. You can schedule promos, and a lot of this stuff has long lead times. So if you're trying to do a hidden gems or something, you know, you might need several months of advance warning to do that. So if you're going to go wide, you can also set up for pre-order, and you don't actually have to have your book finished to be able to set up a pre-order for that. But you'd want your draft done. Like that's the thing, is the pressure as like, you know, if you're on book 20, that's different, but the pressure of having a release date set, if you're just drafting, like you don't want to be pushed into releasing something you're not ready to release, or back out on your release date and lose your Amazon account. That's also not good. There is a lot of push right now to go wide, and as well, because there's been so much kerfuffle on Amazon the last little while. Now, as a new author, depending on your genre and your length of book, like it can take 1 year to 2 years to build up a following wide. That being said, if you start that way from the beginning, you know, you can make some choices. You could also start not wide. If you know that you've got 4 months or whatever between releases, you could do your first 3 months in KU, and then you could open it up. You could come out of KU in time to go wide with your pre-order and everything else on all the other platforms. So yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot of options, which makes it a little bit overwhelming, but
Yeah, definitely overwhelming.
yeah. But I mean, I think the thing that holds true through, regardless of what strategy you're doing, if you are planning to either pitch a series to a traditional publisher or to India series, that you probably want to have those first 3 drafted if you can before you actually start releasing things or pitching things. Because there's so much other stuff to want to pay attention to, that once you start in the releasing side, balancing the writing and the releasing, and not knowing where your full arc will end up, and not knowing how long it's really going to take you to finish that, makes everything else so much harder. So if I could travel back in time and change one thing, I would have written more stories before I released any.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would assume
Yeah.
all the getting the book covers and yeah, just everything's going to take up more of your brain time than writing.
Yeah. And, you know, like a lot of the good cover designers, you're booking them 6 months to a year in advance right now. And so, you know, if you've got all 3 books outlined and you've got the first one written and you're kind of set on your tone and you know where the other ones are going, you can get your covers underway, right? Like if you've written the synopsis,
Yeah, I've got all that done.
all 3. Yeah. So that's great. So then you can start working on the pieces. But I think especially your first go round, like not being rushed into this like steep learning curve, substantially increases your chances of making that work. And once you have 3 books, that's enough to work with. Like that, If you've got 3 books and you can turn them into a box set, that is enough to do all of the things you need to do to work on selling those, right? If they're actually part of a series. But until you have that many, it's really hard to, like, the marketing stuff isn't going to really pay off, because selling book 1 with ads doesn't really get you anywhere. You're usually running at a loss for that. You know, like, you need to be looking at sell through, box set sales, whatever it's going to be, the ability to apply for BookBub, like all that kind of stuff that's wrapped up in it. That makes a big difference.
How long do these books have to be?
Well, my books are 20,000 words for
Really?
the most part. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So the only thing is you can't do BookBub for a novella. So if your strategy revolves around BookBub, you need to hit, it's 35 to 40,000 words, because it's 150 pages. And I think, yeah, 30,000, let me just tell you exactly how many pages 30,000 words is, because that's how long Reindeer Games is. So I can tell you what that equates to in terms of page count.
But doesn't page count also have to do with how large or small the fonts are, or there's just a standardized?
No, Kindle has a standardized calculator, and so when you upload your book, if it's digital, they tell you how many pages it is. You don't tell them. So Reindeer Games is 129 pages in the KDP equivalent.
So that's just shy. So what, like 35,000 words you have to have, like, about 35,000 words?
I'd say you probably want to hit 40,000, because I always include a preview at the end of my book of the next book. So it's got a chapter from another book. So I would say 40,000 is your target if you want to hit be BookBubable. And there are some categories that are different. Like if you're doing kids books or nonfiction or whatever, like the rules for that are different. So you'd want to check those. There's a post on the BookBub site. But
and you're as successful as you are, which I consider pretty successful, that you're able to make money and put some of it back in and make more money on books that are no more than 20 to 30,000 words.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. The trick though is the trick. There's the tricks. People have to want to read the next one. So that, like, more than anything else, that's the thing. Like, they've got to be really attached to the people in the world and want to keep reading them. So that's huge. Consistent release times, bundled into mini series that can then be like a complete reading experience. Because I'm noticing, like, my box set sales are going poof, whereas people, you might have got them to read the other ones, but if they read book 1 and book 3 is not yet available, then they may or may not go to book 2. Like, some people like to see that it's all there before they are
they like to just know that they're going to be able to
burn through it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do that with TV series. Like, I don't like to watch the stuff that releases every week. I will binge an entire 6 seasons of something in a row, but
exactly.
I want that package, right? So I get it as a reader. As a writer, being able to quick release, like, the strategy was around, okay, if I do 3 or 4 or 5 novellas that are all interlinked and then I bundle them, it gives me also, like, bonus products. And it also allows you, with the short ones, I can give the first one in every single miniseries away without it costing me too much money. It's only the time that went into it, the editing money, which is not crazy. And it also allowed me to do audiobooks for, like, anywhere, because I have some are short stories that are only like 10,000 words. I think there's 2 of those. So I can do an audiobook for between $150 and $400 of all of these novellas, and my product count goes up very quickly. And it also makes me look very established. So when you go to someone's website and they have like 10 books, it's a completely different thing than if you had 2 or 3
So
even.
some of your books are 10,000 words?
I have a couple of, like, shorter stories, because Kindle has a short reads category.
Mm-hmm.
Actually several. So I have released a couple of short stories, Mary, which I give away for free to get people into the witchy ones. And then Trick or Treat is quite short, and that one is like my newsletter cookie. So you can only get that by signing up for my newsletter. It's not available anywhere else.
And what do you think it is that makes, like, your first point where people have to want it, or like, do you have any advice about that? I know that you're writing in a particular genre, but can you kind of extrapolate?
Yeah, I think it's just the part of it is the basics of good storytelling. Like, you know, you need to have characters that people like and are rooting for, regardless of your genre, whether it's, you know, a thriller, you want to be either rooting for the killer or the person who's the hero, whichever. If you're in fantasy, you want to be those likable main characters that people get attached to. And I think, yeah, it basically just boils down to the rules of storytelling and your genre. And that's the biggest thing, is what is it that we love about that character, or why we follow the series is different from genre to genre, right? If it's in like a cozy mystery, that's the things that would make us love a person in a cozy mystery are quite different than what would make us keep coming back for a romance series, right? So if you had a genre in particular in mind, what would you be thinking of? Or is that kind of an open conversation at the moment?
Well, I'm just thinking about, I mean, I know that I'm in middle grade, and that's a whole nother can of worms in a sense, although series are great in middle grade too. But, you know, if I was going to stay in historical fiction with my character, other possibilities would be, you know, she's in 1536, but this goes on, you know, through till today. In fact, I have a sort of half-baked one about her modern ancestor, her, you know, Maria, who discovers her family is secret Jews, and she lives right, you know, in San Juan Islands in contemporary times. And one time I did just for my own benefit, I did a timeline or a family tree to figure out how it would actually get to this modern character. And so I have mapped out a bunch of other female characters at different times in history in different parts of the world who you know, learned about their relationship to this original Maria.
Right. So that's really cool in the sense that you can explore all these different times and places.
But it's not character driven, right?
Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, but it helps if it is. Are you familiar with like the Time Warp Trio, for example? It's John, and I never say his name right. Skifka. I can never say it. Is
it kind of like the Treehouse Kids or whatever?
Yeah, these guys are like, there's some magic item,
right? Yeah, the Magic Treehouse. Yeah,
different places, and so, but it's these main characters who are adventuring in all of these places, and so,
right, so you have to stick with the same main character.
And there's the thing, you don't have to necessarily, but there needs to be a consistency. So it could be that these are all female characters of a certain age going back in time to learn about their ancestors or whatever. They don't have to be going back in time. Maybe the entire series is like these girl characters at a certain age in their life where they're doing something that they later became famous for, or whatever that is, but it's the consistency part that matters. Like that the element that's tying them together is not just the topic, but there's more to it than that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it may be that all of them are the same age or up to 2 years older than the audience you're intending them for. They're all strong women at an early age doing something in history. Maybe they're all Jewish and each one features a different holiday or tradition or whatever that they're kind of helping you learn about as they have their adventures, right? So it's thinking about all of those pieces matching up along the route.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to have an expectation that people know exactly what they're going to get when they pick up that book.
And are all your series following the same character, or I think they're all in the same location, right? So the characters
they're in the same town, and the cast of characters is consistent, so they pop up in all of there's cameos of like a dozen characters who aren't featured in that story. Like they're all interlinking, so they start to become familiar. It's like living in a small town where you see people at the grocery store you recognize. The books are that, so that's part of what makes people want to know the next story. So, and that's a slightly different way of doing it than linking it through theme. But it's also very different. Like if you're looking at middle grade, it's often parents, teachers, libraries, like those are going to be your ins. It's not necessarily the kids are going to be buying those books. So having something that the librarian knows, if I buy this whole set, I've covered off this area of learning for my students. And, you know, they go together on a shelf in the library in the same section topically. And, you know, it's kids absolutely love series. Thank you, Janine. They do. They absolutely love series. And if they can get into it, if you can find something that they're excited to read, then they're just sucked right in. But they like to do it through a character that they relate to. So often they are like a single character having multiple adventures. So you might look at, you know, if Maria is your main character, then it's a series of adventures that she would have throughout this year of living as a secret Jew in this place, right? So they can get attached to her and they're learning alongside her all of these things, but she's having adventures, right? And it's not like I hit you over the head kind of learning. It's I'm learning with her as she learns about these things.
So, right. But that, and the thing about those kinds of, well, I guess they work because you can have multiple books, even though the character really should be aging, but isn't actually aging, right? Somehow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you could have a lot of adventures in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true.
Of story time, right?
Like they don't tend to ever age.
No, exactly.
Magic Treehouse, that was around for like 10 years, and those characters
Who was that?
got older.
Yeah. There's no real aging. So I don't know. Is that useful? Something to ponder?
Yeah, I don't think I can necessarily do it with this book, but I like the idea of shorter ones that might be about her at different points. I mean, I leave her in an unknown situation, and certainly there could be more about her, as she negotiates all the different, the Americas and this, that, and the other. But I would want to do those other ones even shorter than this one, which is 35,000 characters. Words. But I don't know that would really work as a box set or as a series, because you'd have to commit to this one and then the other ones wouldn't be the same length.
Yeah, I mean,
I suppose if I self-published, if I end up not, by the way, I got it out to all the agents. Yay! But if I were to self-publish it, I suppose I could recast it to make it into a series, like, to like slice it up and tell part of the story and then another part of the story.
Yeah, like you had a lot going on in the picture book one that I saw, and then the other one, there was a lot happening. Like you covered a lot of ground. So you could break it into like 3 adventures that tackled separate pieces and make it like shorter but a consistent length. So the other thing is, like, depending on the publisher that you get, or if you indie it, if you do end up with a publisher, your story will be edited to fit their standard lengths. Like it won't be really up to you for the most part, because they'll have templates for this age of reader. This is our template, and this is how long the books are, and this is our price point, and it's all set. So there's a certain amount of the story will just be made to fit that. Whereas if you are indieing it, then you have a lot more flexibility. But you can certainly, like, if you're looking at an early reader chapter book,
Yeah,
They're
but I'm not
often, like,
looking at early reader, no.
well, 30,000 words, that is what that is, kind of, right? Or is that's a middle grade?
No,
But
no, that's middle grade, 30,
yeah,
30 to 50, 60.
yeah, okay. But it still can be in a format that's like that, right? Like it doesn't have, like they don't have to be fat books. Um, so if you're looking at early middle grade, or even like a chapter book, that would be sort of pre middle grade is the other option, then you can play around with that a little bit. If you wanted to go shorter, then
But I
it
think also you could do that for reluctant reading. That's another
yeah. Hmm.
group that would enjoy something shorter in a
Yeah.
series. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean there are so many options, but the trick is consistency and intention. Like you need to know, my goal is, this is exactly the reader I'm targeting. My goal is, I want, at least to start with 3 books that are fitting this mold, or whatever it is. And same thing, if you have those mapped out, if you know what you're trying to do with them, and you can pitch them as that, then it allows you a lot more sort of room to set the base where you want it to be, right? Yeah. Yep. And the guidelines on how many words and whether it counts as upper middle grade or lower middle grade or a chapter book or whatever are different from publisher to publisher. So there are some industry standards which are really averages and don't really apply to anyone in particular. So it's really like, often you're targeting a specific publisher, not just a rough guideline. But that's what your agent is for, right? In Canada, we have a lot of unagented submissions because a lot of the publishers will accept stuff that comes not through agents. But if you're looking for like a really good, clear breakdown, I don't know if you've ever looked at Orca Books. Orca Book Publishers, they're actually from Victoria here, but they have really clear guidelines on their website about what constitutes the different types of books. And it's geared to them, but I just found it really helpful if you're looking for some like super clear instructions on like what makes a high-low reader and what counts as this versus that they do have a really nice breakdown. So that might be worth just taking a look for you. I mean, they also take submissions. I don't know if you have to be Canadian still or not. I know that a lot of their money used to come from grant funding, so they used to, but they sell really well into the American educational market now. So maybe worth a look for you, and you don't need an agent to submit.
I'll take a look. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. What now? More questions? Everyone's muted.
I'm not muted.
I got cut off earlier. I apologize for that. I was on my cell phone and it just died.
Oh,
Well, it just went, it said, I'm too hot. I'm going to go to sleep. Basically, I'm going to sleep now. I'm like, no, I'm in the middle of a conversation. Anyway, sorry about that.
oh, good. So I'm curious, Janine, what are you tackling first? Like, I know you have a few different project lines, and if you're going to hit your 60 by 60, we need to talk about that.
Lines. Maybe by 60. Well, we never know. Anything can happen in by 60, but I think I was trying to get 20 by 2020.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay. It's actually doable because I'm not that young, and 60 is not that far from here. So depending on what you're working on, and I also still have a day job, so that sort of sucks. But but then I feel like I can't leave my day job because there's the pension, So anyway,
yeah.
So I'm staying there for a little while. I am working on two main things. So one of them right now, I'm working on my second book in a series for a town called, I'm trying to figure out the name of the town because it doesn't have a name yet, but I think it's going to be called Sunshine Bay. Anyway, but it centers around a choir. like, so the character's in a women's choir. So that's my, but I think it's, I'm trying to figure out, I was trying to, I'm using Nanaimo in my head because
Mhm.
that's where I've lived for a long time, or I did live for a long time. And it's, so I'm thinking, okay, I could center it around there and sort of use some of the things in that place. And then I kind of like the way La Connor looks, so, because that's the one over in the United States. Anyway, there's these things in my head about that. I'm thinking I'd like to stay Canadian though, just because why not? You know?
Mhm.
Anyway, so I'm creating this town, and I've so I've got these people in this town, and it's been going for, like, I started this original book in 2012, I think, so it's been a long time. Anyway, so I've got the first one kind of written. I've written 50,000 words on it, and then the second one I'm currently writing the outline, and I've got 4,000 words on it so far, and I'm trying to get to 50 by the end of the month, but who knows? And then the third one, I know which way it's going, so it's kind of an arc of 3. So there's a series of 3. So anyway, that's what I'm working on right now.
Nice.
But I'm also, I also just finished a novella, so it's 20,000 words, quite literally 20,100 or something. So, and it's been edited, and it's been reviewed, and it's been edited again. So I think it's ready to kind of launch in some way, and perhaps it could take place in the same town, because it's not that, it's kind of similar, kind of a similar tone to it. So I'm thinking it could also be involved in that. It's not necessarily around the choir, but sort of tangentially it could be. And then the other thing I'm working on though is a series of short stories centered around caregiving, and it's more of a literary short story thing. So I've got a few of those out. I think I've got 7 things out right now in circulation, just at the sending them out to literary magazines. So we'll see. I actually longlisted in a contest and came in 3rd in a contest recently. So we're kind of, it's coming along. It's coming along, but yeah.
Yay. Can we just celebrate that for a second? Because that's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. It's exciting.
Kind of. It's super fun.
I know,
Super
but it's
duper
not
fun.
I'm not getting any further because
Yay!
I know, but I placed 3rd in the same contest last year, and I longlisted in the same contest last year. So I feel like I'm stuck. So I want to get shortlisted or something. And I have been shortlisted a few times. I've got a couple of stories that were shortlisted, like literally in 3 contests. And so I've sent them out to publishers to see if they'll get published in a literary magazine. I haven't heard anything back on it.
So Janine, can I just say something in here for a minute, if you don't mind? So I guess that there's a lot of ways to look at that. And one is certainly, oh, I get stuck in the short list or the long list. Another way to look at it is that when you end up in that level, it means a lot more about the specific judge's tastes than it does about the quality and value of what you're writing.
Yes.
That, there's judges, and like agents and like editors, they all have their flavor of the month, or the thing that they just love or don't love. So it at least it proves a lot already.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just, I've been writing for a very long time, and I'm kind of tired of this level. I just want to move on now.
I hear you. I've been writing a really long time too. It's one of the hard, like all artists, it's part of the game of, taste.
Yeah.
And I think the literary world's so much harder. Like, it just seems so much focused on the rejection and the prizes and the contests and like all of that stuff. And, as a like full-on genre writer, I gotta say, like, it's just such a different spin on everything. It's more about connecting with readers than having like peers say that it's good enough or whatever. And it is a very different experience, and
it's very patriarchal and snotty, quite frankly.
Well, and actually it's also about you almost have to have taken the MFA program so you understand what other people took at the MFA program, because the MFA people are the ones that are judging it. So it's like so I actually started taking a program. It's through Writers Village University, which is I think it's like $60 a year, but they have an MFA program. So I've taken
Oh.
a couple of their courses this year and read some of the books that they read and kind of are starting to think about the way they think about things. So I don't
Mhm.
know, maybe that's been the other thing that's helped a little bit, because I've had a few more hits in the last year than I had before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a challenging area for sure. I also tend to write about things that people aren't ready for sometimes, because
Mhm.
I remember when I was writing children's stories back in the 90s, I was writing them for my children who are bicultural, right? And people were not ready to buy bicultural stories back then. It was just so few were being published, right? So you had to be really, really good in order to get published in those ones. And so I started to get published in short stories, and then I ended up I ended up embarking on my 14-year journey of being a caregiver. So it was, I just didn't have time anymore. I had a job and 2 kids to raise and 2 in-laws to look after. And so I did not have time to write. So it's like I find a little bit that you get a bit of ahead of the curve and they're not quite there yet.
Mhm.
And that's a bit of a challenge sometimes, but anyway,
So thought,
there you go. Yes.
if you,
Thought.
well, you have your Sunshine Bay.
Yes.
If you
Sunshine
had,
Bay. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. What do you think of that name?
I
Sunshine.
like it. Sunshine Bay or Sunshine Cove or Sunshine something, but like, yeah,
It was
we
going to
could
be
use a little sunshine in the world right now. There
it was
you go.
gonna be Sunny Shores, but somebody's got Sunny Shores Mysteries, and I just thought,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to be copying them. So
Yeah.
anyway, there you go.
But the other way to spin all of this work you've been doing in the literary stuff is if you had a series of 3 novellas around caregiving, like it is a hugely popular topic. And it's like, if you look at the demographic of who are doing the caretaking, it's the people reading the romances. And like, if you were able just to extract that and then, include elements of that in your fictional
story.
stuff that's set in your small town, honestly, I think those would get snapped up like hotcakes. I think that would be, and I mean, you've got the choir, you've got the caregiving stuff, you've got this lovely little town people can get attached to in which they lived in, and that's a thing right now, I think.
And it's just down the road from River's End.
Well, I was saying we could go there. That would be so fun.
I just thought that was funny because I started writing this, I don't know, long ways ago, and then I thought, no, what you're doing makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I have this vision of a box set where all of us, because I know about 5 or 6 authors who write like hometown romance that are all set in Canada. So my thought was, okay, if we would do a box set where characters go to visit each other's town, like if there's a link between towns in a box set, and then we put that out so that it's like the first book in whatever. How fun would that be? Like just that intermingling of worlds at a very like light level, and then just lead people from one to the next. How much fun would that be?
Building a community, a world, building a world. Very cool.
Or, what else would be really fabulous would be a box set where there's just books, one book from each of these authors, where people come back, where there is the linkings that creates the link, because that box set would then open it up to all your other box sets. Or is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that our characters, like we would do a box set with all of us in our small town places, but that we would have a tie-in in some way to link
that would be
town to town to town.
Probably.
It's what?
You could do a Christmas tie-in for something like that.
Oh yeah,
Or,
totally.
like a time of year thing. That might be an easiest way to do something like that, because I know there's people that do Navy SEALs or whatever, but I don't know anything about Navy SEALs. So I'm not
and people are always going to visit the family in a different place, or getting away from the holidays to visit somewhere else, or whatever. So we could certainly work something out. I have a little list of authors in the back of my mind, so you just need to finish your next little couple books so we can get them out there in the world, and then we can add you to that list.
Well, I've got one that's 50,000 words long that needs major editing, and I've got another one that's, I think I've got 4,000 words on my one I'm writing right now. And if you've
got a novella you could turn into a cookie.
Pardon?
if you've got a novella that you could turn into a cookie
Yeah.
for your newsletter list, like if that's your freebie,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
good to go.
I
Good to
do have
go,
my
lady.
novella. I just need
You're
to
like-
learn about. I know I'm not close, but I need to learn about covers.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, my covers need to be done next.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at, and so have you guys ever worked with somebody like Freeze and Press or any of those types of things?
I have.
No, you wouldn't do that. No.
Nope.
Nope.
They're crazy expensive, and then they control all of your dashboards and interfaces with all of the stuff. You are like hamstrung. I would not go there.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just wondered about that. 'Cause-
Yeah. No, you don't need that. If you want to be connected with like a cover designer or whatever, we'll give you a couple of recommendations. You're much better to put like your $600 into buying the right covers than to spend $2,000 on paying somebody else to handle the publishing part, which literally amounts to like pushing the publish button. Like, because you're on a Mac, right?
No, but I could be. I have to get a new computer.
Okay, well, think about it. Draft to Digital has layout software that you don't need a special computer to use, so that's an option. And Vellum for doing all your layouts, like you can spend $250 to buy the program and lay out every book you will ever do. You know, it's a really easy learning curve. We do tutorials in here on how to use it. So, you know, the actual getting going part, it's your covers, your editing, and your layouts that are the pieces. And if you can do the layouts yourself, that'll save you hundreds of dollars. And if you can get a cover set, like if you know what your first 3 books are, like you got your novella and then your first 2 books, get them as a batch. Anyone else, even if you can't get the same cover designer later, anyone else should be able to match to that. Or if you have Photoshop, you can try to hire somebody on Fiverr and you can buy the template from them, like whatever the actual Photoshop file was, and then you can swap elements if you're comfortable with that. Like if you get them to design you a series look, then that's also a possibility. And that's what I ended up doing was I ended up just getting some help with the template, and then I just can swap things out. And then if I need a brush up on an image or something, I can just pay for the hour, whatever it takes to get those tweaks done. But I know the framework of what I'm working with. Just depends how many stories you think you're going to want to do in a short period of time. Because for me, I was like, there's no way I can pay like hundreds of dollars a cover, or even at like $100 a cover with a plan to do 40 in a year. I was like, no, can't do that.
This
So-
template?
What was that, Bonnie?
What's the name of the template that you were talking about?
Oh, there isn't a name for it. It was just like if you're going to work in Photoshop, you can hire a designer.
Before that, for the layout.
Oh, Vellum. It's
Vellum.
a tool, that you can buy. And just for the ebook one is cheaper. I think it's $149 for just the ebook layouts, and it's amazing. You just import a Word document, you can customize it, make it look beautiful, and it just exports and it's ready to upload to the publishing companies. Which is a new thing. Like we used to have to lay everything out in InDesign or whatever, and it was just
So you can send that to Ingram's. Well, it's ebook, right? So
Yep. And they also have print in Vellum. There's a print option too if you go with the next tier up, which I think is the $250 one. It's probably $200 in the States. I always have the exchange in my head. But it will export print layout books too that are ready to upload to anywhere. So
wow.
that is the best investment if you're looking at doing multiple books. And it makes really beautiful books. So it's a little bit limited in terms of it won't do a picture book well. Like you can include pictures in your book, but it's not like you wouldn't design a kid's book in it, for example. But if you're looking
the day they come up with that will be amazing.
Well, they have that for digital. Like if iBooks for authors, you can build kids books for publishing on the iPad, and Kindle has a kids book creator tool, which is free as well. And you can build kids books for Kindle in that. So you can do it digital. It's just, and I think Lulu and Blurb probably have children's book creators as well that you can use. The books are a little
those are really expensive.
Yeah. but yes, for like the text-based stuff, they have those, which is great.
And you can
Yeah.
get Scrivener in Mac too, right? So it's all.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the Scrivener for Mac is quite updated.
It's better. It's number 3 now.
Yeah, and it interfaces with your iPhone, which is glorious. There's the app, so I can actually write on my phone, which
I'd
is
have to get
fun.
an iPhone too. So, you know.
There you go. But yeah, if you're getting into the creative side of things, then there are a lot of tools on the Mac that are really nice to be able to use. I do almost all my video editing in GarageBand, or not GarageBand. I do audio editing in GarageBand and video editing in iMovie. Even though I have Premiere Pro, I just find it's like so much easier to just make stuff in iMovie, which is great.
GarageBand.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, there I have to just think about that too.
Yeah, ponder that. But it's good if you have like a budget and if you can see, hey, I know I can do all my layouts if I have Vellum and I can pay this much for the first like 5 covers or whatever. I know that at this many words roughly per book, the editing will cost roughly this much. It makes it a lot easier to go to your day job when you're like, that just paid for that. That just paid for that. That just paid for that. I am progressing with my career, even though I am still working
On the other career.
the other career. Exactly. I know that has helped me stay good with with like the corporate work that I do. I don't have that. I hate my day job. I need to be done with this most days, because that it allows me to do what I want to do with my author stuff, and I know that I'm building a solid foundation for a longer term career, and that's what's allowing me to do that. Which, you know, personally, I feel very privileged at being able to put money towards that. But I only did that at the very beginning, and now the royalties are actually paying for the for all of the book stuff itself. And so, and we've just reached the point where it's actually making money on top of paying for all of the things. And so that's just, yeah, it's just like a stepped process. But then you're free to start building that without feeling like it's, you know, forcing you to work more, or, you know, all of those things. So just if you're looking at a net zero, like you don't want to be in debt to do any of these things. But if keeping that job the extra couple of years is, you know, securing future self's happiness and opportunities, then it does make it easier to go into the 9 to 5.
Yes. Yeah. If it only were 9 to 5, that would be great.
Well, yeah, we use that in a euphemistically positive way.
Ridiculous. It gets harder.
The 6 to 10 a.m. to
That's
p.m.
okay. It's I don't have to work today, so that's all good.
Awesome.
Yeah, so thanks. I'm sorry I've been taking up a lot of questions today, but I won't
That's
be
good.
back in weeks. So I can go on with.
Get it in while you can. They're good questions and interesting things to talk about.
So thank you for this, because I've got I heard what you said to Bonnie, where you got having 3 done already would be helpful before you start trying to sell them, right? So
yeah, and if you've got like romance novellas or whatever, 6 weeks is the sweet spot in terms of release time. So yeah, if you're able to have like something exclusive that you can put for perma-free, whether that's, you can actually have your newsletter cookie be the same perma-free as what you have up on all the platforms. It works great as a starting place. And then that just builds your newsletter list kind of organically while you're going. And then if you then are able to quick release, like 6 to 8 weeks apart is the sweet spot. And then you've got your box set, your first box set to release at the end of that. So you get, you know, 5 products out there. That's enough to look like a real thing on your website. And when people find your name and you've got 5 things up there on the stores, it gives you a weight that means, oh, they're serious about this. And then people are much more willing to buy in.
right.
And if you know it's coming and you can say, hey, does anyone want to be on my ARC team when they sign up for your free book? Like, oh, did you like that? Okay, great. Well, if you're interested, I'm recruiting, blah, blah, blah. And it all builds so much quicker when you have like the 3 or 4 in a row.
Okay. All right. It's every
All
6
right.
weeks. So if we figure out that you want your final, like say doing the box set and the 3 by Christmas next year,
Yeah.
to have the box set done by around October.
Yeah. If you are able to have like November 1st-ish, November 1st to 15th as your release for the final product in whatever it is you're doing, that will give you the maximum exposure. Because this weekend, I went from like 300 free downloads a day to 500 free downloads a day. So like this is the tipping point weekend, the middle of November is when people go all in on the holiday stuff, and also tend to shift, like there's the long weekends and whatever, people do a lot of reading. So if you have your stuff in place for early November, then you're well positioned to get the most you can out of the holiday season. Mid-November to mid-January, I sell as much as like the whole rest of the year put together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we got it.
All right.
Got a
Did you-
timeline.
Yeah.
Maybe
Did you
there?
find
That's
the Janine, did you see the like publishing checklist that I posted?
No.
It's got the timelines that I use for everything, which if you're ready to quick release, you know, a series of novellas or whatever would work really well for you, I think. Just don't panic when you look at it. I have resources to help with all of those stages coming. I have recorded like 50 videos for you guys that I just have to package and post. But I'm working through those over the next 6 weeks. But by the time you're ready for them, there will be every single stage in that checklist. But it's a good roadmap of the tools that I'm using. I think I even put costs of those tools. There's got like a rough schedule, and it shows the things in the order that I do them and in what stages. So it'll be a good roadmap for you so that you at least don't feel like you have to figure out how all of that works. And then you can just scan the list and come to office hours anytime you can with a list of, okay, how do I do this part? Like, this is what I'm learning next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'm noticing the time, and apparently I talk a lot, so it's 10:15. Y'all have words to write, as do I. And I'm guessing that people may even still be in the writing room.
Probably. Yeah.
And if not, we can go open it back up again and write some more words. I need to shower, but I will be back hopefully after that for a little bit and get some more words before I've got to go.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for coming by. And Bonnie G, stick around for a few more minutes. We will look at the thing I promised we will look at.
Thank you.
Yeah. And nice to see you, Marie. However briefly.
Thanks. I just thought I'd stop in because I'm sort of vaguely thinking about doing something with my Hawk series that I just took the rights back to.
Nice.
But I'm going to now look up your checklist. Excellent.
Yes, I will put a post. I'm going to make a note right now. I will just put a link in there. If you look in the publish your book section, I think that's where I just posted it, but I will repoint people towards it
Great.
as
Thank
well.
you. And thanks for letting me listen in.